Boys don't become men simply by getting older. They must be shown the way. They must be initiated into manhood by other men. They need brothers. The world may be collapsing, but God is raising up good men to raise good men. It's one of the great God movements of our time, and you can be part of it. On the Dragon Slayers podcast, we interview ordinary men with extraordinary tales of conquering their fears and becoming fearless, loving men of God. Through their stories, you will hear rich wisdom, practical advice, and the value of brotherhood so you can stand out as a man among men. Warning, we will not mince words. We believe soft men and soft advice slay no dragons. So prepare yourself like a man. This is the Dragon Slayers podcast.
Christian Zamora, here you are, man of God, father, husband, all-around good guy.
Mm-hmm.
You, one of the great strengths around our world at Loving on Purpose, and now here at Dragon Slayers, one of the co-hosts of this movement catalyst for courageous men. Thanks for being here, buddy.
Yeah, I love it.
Thanks for jumping on. You have a unique story. You know, you have a unique maybe family background. I mean, the first time I heard it, I had to hear it again because I didn't quite get it the first time. Because there's a little bit of complexity to it.
Sure.
But so talk a little bit about how the Zamoras happen.
Yeah, I'm wearing on purpose all my Zamora gear too. I'm wearing a sweatshirt, my brother's company.
Nice.
My
Yeah.
uncle made this hat, says Z Tribe. So I'm half Filipino, so the Filipino family. We got together recently. There was like 40 of us. We had to move out of houses. We're in my brother's gym, so we're in a gym doing our family gatherings. But
That's awesome.
but yeah, I grew up with. It felt like probably the best place to start with is parents got divorced when I was pretty young, like 6. Parents get divorced. At that time, there was 3 boys. So there was my older brother, me, and my younger brother, Chase. And my dad remarries, mom remarries pretty quickly. And my dad has, with my stepmom, 3 more boys. So there's 6 boys altogether.
Mm-hmm.
My mom got remarried, has a daughter, and then adopts a daughter. So I have, 5 brothers, 2 sisters. But I went back and forth, that 50-50 split type of deal. And to a lot of it, I felt like I was asleep to some of the craziness that was going on. How I dealt with family trauma or that kind of thing as I just kind of disappeared. There's so many times my older brother, who's older and taking on responsibility, will remind me of some of the stuff that we did or went through. And it's like, dude, I don't remember any of that. I'm sorry, dude. Like, I was not helpful.
That's deep down in my heart.
Yeah.
Where? Yeah.
So it's like to a point where we're married now, and we'll get into that later. But I remember our wives both talking to each other, and like, my wife asked me how I'm so good at talking about how I'm feeling, and Charlie goes, "You don't know why?" And I go, "Why?" He goes, "Dude, we've been in counseling since we were kids. All we've ever had is adults ask us how we're feeling and what's going on inside of us." And I was like, "Oh, I was just playing with blocks. That's what they were doing." But it's like, oh, okay. But so at 12 years old, there's something in there too. At 12 years old, my older brother, I look back now and didn't realize then, but the one person that I actually spent the most time with my entire life is my older brother, because I was 50-50 with parents, but I was 100% with my brothers.
Yeah.
So my older and younger brother, and we're only 2 years apart, so we're incredibly close. There's 4 years between me and the younger one, and we're close, but there's something different about that age. And at 12 years old, he decided he wanted to live with my dad. And so I went through a year of going back and forth, just me and Chase. And there's pressures between parents and lots of dysfunction that you're unaware of, and it's just normal for you because that's family and that's your idea of things. And at 12 years old, I wanted to move over to my dad's house too. And when people asked me why, I was smart enough to tell them the reason I thought that they would let me do it, but the real reason was I can't stand being away from my older brother. The times I'm not with him, because I actually feel the safest when I'm with him.
Yeah.
And even though my dad was, both my parents were awesome, it is hearing other people's stories. I don't want to sit and say like I had the worst life. I mean, I had parents who loved me and provided for me and took care of me. So there was lots of great things happening in my life too, but there was just some unfun things too.
Mm-hmm.
And so going back to growing up, he's like my younger brother Chase, he ended up at 12 years old moving over. So we're all at my dad's house, and there's 3 more brothers there, and it's awesome. There's 6 or more boys. We all play sports. My dad's coaching literally all of our teams. In our little community, there's just like there's Zamoras. We had a big red Suburban. We'd be flying by, it'd be like the all male Brady Bunch cast. It was just like boom. And so there was that period of my life that feels so fun. And I talked to all my brothers, and we're just so fond of this like little stretch of time where it felt like the connection and all things were just awesome. But then you run into some other things, and a few years down the line, my dad and stepmom get divorced, and that was a wild ride doing that a second time as an adult. And there was parts about that was actually even harder, it felt like, than the first time. And I realize now it's just because I was more aware of what was happening and the toll it was taking. And so it just created a lot of division and strife. And so by that time, that happened, my older brother had left again. Felt like he left me again. I at 18, he was getting into it with my dad and stepmom, and mostly my stepmom. And at 18, where he was like, the minute I can leave, like I'm 18 now. He's like, I'm gone, and just walked out, the door, grabbed a double bag full of stuff, and he was gone. And I stayed, in that triangulation thing where there's a bad guy and a victim and a hero. Like I'm a 2 on the Enneagram, so hero felt really awesome. I'm a 2-3, so I was like, I can do this. I can make everybody feel better. Like let me start being dad. Let me start being this or that, and thinking again that it was totally normal. And I'm trying to key in on this brother relationship because of what we're doing, but there's my brother at that time started reconnecting with my mom, my biological mom, who we both hadn't talked to for 15, 16 years. And because she was bad, that's you asked me why not? It's like, oh, she's horrible. She's the worst. And so there's 2 things happening simultaneously. One, I meet my amazing wife really early on, who saved my life and pointed at the dysfunction I lived in and goes, this is not normal. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is family. This is what families do.
This is what we do.
This is not what families do. This is not what families
No,
so
we get married.
I have a new normal coming in, kind of helping me question whether or not what I'm doing is good or dysfunctional. And then I have a brother who's, he's a 8 on the Enneagram. He won't take the Enneagram. That's how 8 he is. But he's high D, and he would come and say, come and see me or try to say stuff to me, and I would just not want any part of it. And it came to a head when he came into my place of work. And he's like, hey man, what's the deal? All that stuff that's happening is wrong. Like, why are you still participating? I don't get it. And now I can see where he was coming from. It became clear to him, and he's a very clear black and white person. Once I decided this is wrong, I'm getting out. At the time, I was so confused that I felt right and he was wrong, right? So I'm like, hey, no, this is right. And so we're start to escalate the conversation. At this time, we're both in our 20s. We like to, it was in a gym. We both like to work out. We're decent sized dudes. And the voices escalate till we are in a full on screaming match in front of hundreds of people in this place of business. Just yelling where you don't even almost understand what you're saying. The volumes, it was wild. And we're screaming at each other. And while I'm screaming at him, this thing that came out of my mouth, I had never thought before, but I never said it before. And I said, you left me.
You left me. I was waiting for that.
You left me. And the minute I still get emotional talking about it, because and the minute he heard it, he stopped. And you could tell like he was the guy who does not like being vulnerable or wanting to cry. He was like, what
Oh, that's what happened.
That's what it's like. We both figured out the problem together. It was
Wow.
like this disconnection between you and me. I'm not really mad at you, dude. Even though you come around and I tell you to go away, I don't want you to leave.
Mm-hmm.
He during that time when we weren't talking, because at this point, we hadn't talked for years. He showed up when my first son was born at the hospital.
Ugh.
He found out our delivery room, walked into our room. And at this point, I've trained my wife that this guy we don't want this guy around. He opens the door and said, "Don't get mad. I'm sorry to do this. That's my nephew. I want to be able to tell him that I was here the day he was born."
Yeah.
Because really what he was telling me too was,
I'm with you.
I'm with you and I'm in your future. You're not there yet, but well, you're not there yet, but I'm not going to stop. Like, me and you are going to be connected.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to miss this moment.
Yeah.
And that's a brother.
That's a brother.
Correct. So, going back to that screaming match, it didn't immediately resolve the problem, but it's like we both understood now what it was. And then through the promptings of my wife, starting to ask me like, "Hey, why don't you talk to your mom? What did she do? She's bad." Okay, I heard you say that.
Let's open that up a little bit.
What did she do? She's bad. Stop asking me. Like, hey, I've forgiven her. I'm fine. I don't ever think about her. And it was true. I never think about it. We're fine. Everything's fine there.
We're fine.
What's going on with your mom? Why is she? Stop it. And I still remember this day, we've moved up, me and Bree have moved up from our garage studio into our duplex at this point, and we're on a bed that has no box frame. And I remember like screaming into my pillow when she's asking me again. I can't be wrong about her, because if I am, I have not talked to my mom for 15 years for no reason. Mm. That's a dumb reason not to talk to your mom.
There's a revelation that you scream into the pillow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So this leads to my brother had already reconciled with my mom and restored a relationship, and my wife, who sees so many things before they're coming, is just like, hey, because at that time me and Charlie started talking again. We're reconciling a relationship, and we're fast friends immediately. We're back to brothers right away.
Yeah.
And so that's why my wife was working on the relationship with the mom, was like, hey, your brother's connected to your mom. Your son's going to turn one, or their son's going to turn one, and we're going to be at the same party, and you haven't you won't even think or talk about her. Like, we're going to have to work this out, And so my brother led the way in reconciliation. And I remember my wife was working on me. And so I go, okay, my brother's done it. He's saying that she's not horrible. My wife's saying that I really don't have any reason to be mad. And at this point, I've committed my life to Jesus, and I feel in my prayer time, Jesus is telling me, Holy Spirit's saying like, hey man, you need to go talk to your mom. And I show up to my mom's house, I knock on the door after not talking to her for, at that point, longer than I had been. So I left when I was 12. So at this point, my brother made that point to me. He's like, dude, you've not known her longer than you've known her. Mm. And this is me, I'm not even 30 yet. I'm like, yeah, that's wild. So I knock on the door, and she answers. And my first thing I say, I'm only here because my wife and Holy Spirit told me to be here. I don't want to be here. I'm going to cry again. She goes, son, I'm so glad that you listen to your wife and to Jesus. Whoom, tears melt, and then same thing. It's like, oh, you're my mom. Because at the time, which is funny, going back, and I'll wrap this story up right there with reconciling my mom, is the same time when I was telling my wife that my mom was bad and that she was all these things, I was also telling her, it sounds so funny now. I was also telling her, hey, I'm missing something in my life. And she goes, what is it? I'm missing someone that's like my biggest fan, that just, even if I did something horrible, they'd almost spin it to be good. I go, it's not what you're bringing to me, because it's different than because you support me and you love me, but there's some kind of thing. And I'm literally describing a mom to my wife, who's looking at me like, dude, you're talking about mom. Yeah. This is what moms do.
Yeah.
And so that thing that I'd missed out on for a lot of years came right back in. And again, it's like my whole family's at our house the next day. There's no weirdness at all. I'm back home.
This is my son. He's not a drug dealer. He's in pharmaceuticals.
Exactly. So, there's still a way to go. So I got to reconnect with two sisters who I was out of their life most of their life. So I had to just learn them and repent and for, things. And I've gotten to form really great relationships with both of them, with Hannah and Gabby, and they're amazing. And then my 5 brothers, we're still walking that part out of, because as soon as I left and reconnected with my brother and my mom, I now became part of that enemy that I fought so hard against. And, we have new heroes in that triangulation and same victim. And I see the same thing happening with my brothers where they want to talk with me and they want to have a relationship, but there's something about if they do that, they're betraying their family. We've actually had some great victory through that, but it's an ongoing thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, as maybe complex as that sounds, it's pretty normal these days. It's pretty common story of blended families and good guy, bad guy, pick a side, loyal, disloyal. That's not an uncommon story. I know that just being with you for the years that we've been together, I've heard the story of kind of gathering your brothers and making a family out of you guys again. And tell that story a little bit. There's just kind of almost this catalytic role that you played in healing the land.
It was, we talk about this, like you talk about this in the book, like rust friends and how things just go and you don't realize how long it's been. And, my dad had made a comment because, I still stay connected to my dad. My dad's awesome. I still see him every day. We work out together. And it was either him or my brother said something that was him. He's like, man, I haven't had all my boys in the same room in 10 years. Mm-hmm. It's like, whoa. And some of them live out of state at this point, and they're, of course, growing and starting families and that sort of thing. And so that's pretty wild. And, through the years, we just shoved that hurt, and we'd show up at different family events together, and we'd pretend that there wasn't this huge problem, and I'd ask about their lives, and they'd be somewhat interested in mine, and we'd just go real surface with it. And we did that for a long time. And, my brother is awesome because he's a envelope pusher and a button pusher, and he likes to, he wants to solve, so he'll force the issue, so he's like, let's go do something, let's go do this, and he'll throw us all in a text thread, and you could just tell there was some kind of desire, but there was really a hesitation for us to really connect.
And what's the age span? The oldest is and the youngest is?
Yeah, so Charlie is 36, 37, and the youngest is just turned 21. Okay. So whatever years that is, however math works.
26.
Yeah.
16,
something like that.
A lot.
Yeah.
We just know the difference between 36 and 21, and that's really, let's just stick to that, guys.
All right, sorry, I'm doing math.
Let's stay in our lane.
On the go.
So
it's dangerous.
So anyways, we have this text thread, and occasionally we'll put stuff in there, whatever. So all Zamora men apparently like work super in the morning. We're all very early people. My dad was always awake so early, and I'm working this or that, and so my phone just starts blowing up, and it's on that, my favorite mode, do not disturb.
Right.
So it's one of those things that when I look over, it's like 42 text messages. Like, what is happening? Like, that's unusually high. This is like 5:30 a.m. And I open up the text thread, and my heart dropped because a little joke and a little jab towards one brother poked a hurt that started an avalanche of a response of accusations and and name calling, and everyone's swords were out. And on full display, that thing that no one wanted to talk about showed up on this 45 text thread that happened in 10 minutes.
Best place to have this conversation.
Oh yeah.
Text message.
Yeah. And brothers are taking sides and this or that, and it kind of felt like all verse. My oldest brother at that point, and he loves that challenge, so he's out there lopping heads because everyone's going after each other, and I'm like, what is happening? I didn't even know how to respond, in those things, and but I did. I just said, hey, clearly there's a lot of hurt here. We should talk about this, and this is probably not the best place to do it. My dad, who's in that thread too, and I can only imagine as a father now too, watching what he saw, what that felt like. He texted me right away privately, and he said, if you can get all your brothers to agree to be in a room, I'll do whatever. I'll get everybody there. I said, great, thanks, Dad. So I text the brothers, hey, let's go somewhere. Let's all meet. Where's the best place to meet? Because everyone lives out of state. So
Octagon.
Yeah, so that's what it felt like. Well, to be honest, Vegas is where we picked, and it was like Vegas is probably not the best choice, but it was one of the most central places to where we all lived.
We had
so
commonality.
It's like, I guess we're going to Vegas. So it was Octagon. Yeah, so we show up. My dad. We figure out flights and all this kind of stuff. My brothers helped organize everything, and here we go. We're all flying in, and first time in 10 years, we'd all been in the same room. Our dad's in the room. And so the goal was, hey, we're going to talk through this and hopefully also just spend some time together. So we all get in, the last one gets in late at night. It's like 9:00 when we all get into the little, condo or whatever that we're staying at. And I'm kind of taking lead. And I said, hey, we're here to do a couple of things. One, we're here to just talk. We're here to talk about what's going on inside of it. Like, what are you feeling? What do you need from each other? Like, we're just gonna have a conversation. And then two is like, we're hoping to just spend some time together, do some stuff as brothers. And I was like, so we can start talking tonight, or we can just wait, or tomorrow morning we can do something fun, then talk afterwards. And then, I'll call him number 5 because my dad does this too. Like, he's half the time when he called us at home, he never said our names correctly.
It's your number?
Yeah, number 5. Number 5, who is one of the most torqued up about the whole thing. He just says, we're talking about it now because I ain't doing anything fun with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I ain't going to have fun. So it's like, I guess we're doing this now. And
is he the youngest?
He's second to youngest. Second to youngest. And so it was the thing that was like surprising and awesome about that. One was I got to see how my brothers grew up, because not being in the same room talking to them, but not being around them is like, there's this thing, and older siblings have this where you just kind of always imagine a sibling as you did when you were kids. Like my younger brother is 4 years younger than me. He's 6'5", was at one point like 260. He's huge, way bigger than me.
Wow.
He's a big man. But I think of him as my little brother that was trailing around. Like, I just, you're just
I could throw you across the room.
Exactly. He doesn't even try it. He doesn't want to smoke. But so it's in these, that's how I imagine all these boys. And then what I realized really quickly is like, it was amazing, cool. It was like, even though there was hurt, that they've actually matured into these men.
Yeah.
And number 4 starts off with, hey guys, I learned this in counseling, and I've been going through some stuff, and I learned that, hey, when we talk to each other, let's just tell each other about ourselves, not about the other person.
Genius move.
I was like, I've heard that before. That's great. Let's do that. I go, that's awesome. That's great ground. Like, let's set some ground rules, for the, rules for the octagon. And then we just went like, all right, who's going to go first? And, one of them was like,
this is all in a hotel room in Las Vegas.
Yeah. Bam. And all these hurts, and this or that, and this is oh man. And it was hard. It was hard. And jokingly, me and my older brother laughed because we went on the same page. My older brother, I love him. He's done such a great job with his life, but he also has the tendency going back to being 8 and a D to get, aggressive in these types of situations. And it's only Holy Spirit, if you know my brother, that he came in as the softest, most lovable guy. And he's so tender because that's his heart.
Yeah.
He's such a lover. It's why he protects the way that he does, because he cares so deeply about the people he cares about.
He's like Bob Hassan.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
It's
A
totally
heart with legs.
Heart with legs. And me and him joke. We're like, all right, dude, like, I'll help manage the thing, because everyone thought it was going to be about my younger brothers attacking my older brother. And so the first little grievance was something with Charlie. Charlie handles it beautifully. Humble, comes in low, loves on him well. Healing. That was great. I was like, all right, which one's, I'm thinking like, which one's next? Gonna pop off with Charlie. And the other one looks at me and goes, hey, you. And I'm like, what, me?
Hero boy.
Yeah, exactly.
Number
The
2.
rest of the night seemed to be like all just grievances with me. I'm like, this is not what I was expecting.
Whoa. I'm the hero in this movie.
Yeah. And it was
Yeah.
like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, exact. And so luckily I had been trained and I had all these tools. And me and Charlie joke later. He's like, dude, I thought that was all coming from me. He's like, dude, they were getting you. And I was like, I know. I know. But I got to share with him my heart and what I'd learned, because the one of the greatest things is my brother went out before. I got to follow. Then I've gotten to grow and mature. And then when my brother has aired all these grievances, it was so easy for me to respond, because it's like, I know. That thing that you're mad about me at, I know. I know what that feels like. Here's why. Here's why I did what I did. Here's this thing that I learned that's super important. And a lot of it had to do with like our circles of intimacy, because this was the big thing was, they had never heard or seen that. It was like, hey, you have these circles. And for me, at this point, all my brothers are believers. I said, God's at the center. He's my most important relationship. Outside of that, it's my wife, Brianne. That next circle is my boys. That circle after that is my family, and closest friends. And then it goes on from there. I go, the thing that I didn't realize what happened in the moment, and this grievance that you're feeling with me, is that when I met Bree and we went and got married very quickly, I did a really good job of moving her really close. I knew that much from watching what I didn't want to have happen in my own marriage for my parents. Is like, okay, I need to stay committed and protect this relationship. So my brothers at that point, who were my closest relationships, I spent times at their games. I coached half of their teams. They get ripped out of that circle with no explanation and understanding of where I went and why I did that. And that
Just feel rejected.
you left me.
You left me. We've heard this before.
Exactly. And so when they see it, they get it though.
Yeah.
They go, oh, that really hurt, but I get it. Like, I get why you did that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay. And so it turned into this beautiful moment. So, I mean, so we finished at 12:30, 1 a.m. So 3.5, 4 hours of just straight back and forth and this or that. And we're like, oh my gosh, we're all exhausted.
Let's go have fun.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I was looking and I was like, my favorite part of the whole night, I look around and I said, okay, this feels good. I thought this is great. What do you need? And number 5 says, we needed this. It's awesome. It's like, you're right. We got it. Boom.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? We're hungry. Okay. We're in Vegas. Everything's still open. We walk to this nearest gas station, buy a bunch of horrible food. But it was going back to like me and my brother were brothers right away. Like when we used to go do that walk, it was immediately 6 brothers.
Yep.
6 brothers.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? Tell me about that. How's that going? Super connection way back. It's right there. There was no, like I always said, there was no weirdness. There was no, we're back.
Yeah.
And it was welcomed by all. It's because it's what we longed for.
So good.
Yeah, it's amazing. So we're still staying connected. And one fun thing is my number 4 is getting married in this year. And one of the hurts was because of a family, like number 3 got married, I could tell there was some issues going on. So one of the things I thought was best at the time was not to attend the wedding, which became one of the greatest regrets of my life.
Mm.
One of the things I promised my brothers is I will never miss a wedding. If you invite me, I will be there.
Mm-hmm.
So I get the opportunity. Number 4 is getting married this year, which will be super fun, and we'll be there, and it's exciting.
and they all lived happily ever after.
Yeah.
You know, that's such a great story. That, you know, I mean, it's literally about brothers.
Yeah.
You know, but that's the kind of work.
Yep.
That's covenant work right there. That's what it takes to heal the land. That's what it takes to, you know, think generationally. Like, okay, my boys are going to get in on the benefit of my brothers.
Yeah.
And that's the way it's supposed to go. You know,
Yeah.
It's supposed to be men nourishing generations with their lives. So, well done.
Yeah, it's just the Danny often talks about building connection so we have something to hold on to when things get hard. And it feels like, you know, we're going to keep talking about literal brothers, but we are building a practice of how to do this with spiritual and relational brothers, emotional brothers, to put it that way. But just the practice of learning how to grab something and hold on to this connection and manage my part of this relationship. So just that story feels like there's probably even some keys in there for men listening today to go, okay, first of all, I haven't humbled myself. How do I handle feedback that's really hard to hear? And then what do I do to repair and then walk out this connection?
Hey, Dragon Slayers, you're going to want to pick up Danny Silk's new book, The Way of the Dragon Slayer, 7 Reasons Men Need Brothers. If you're listening to this podcast and you're going, man, I need some more of this in my life. I need to know what those 7 dragons are. I need to know how to slay them. And I need a template, a playbook to gather men around me, to get my own 12 so that I can experience what I'm hearing about on this podcast. Then you got to get the book. Here's another reason you need to get this book. Every single person who pre-orders the book right now is going to get an exclusive Zoom interview with Danny and John Eldridge. I mean, talk about a couple of mighty men of God. They're going to impart some wisdom on you and some practical advice that's going to change your life. Everyone who pre-orders the book gets that. But guess what? 250 people who pre-ordered the book are going to win exclusive Dragon Slayers merch. We're talking about single release merchandise. You're going to get a hat that will never reproduce again. You'll be one of the OG original gatherer, a legacy founder member of Dragon Slayers. And here's why you definitely want to pre-order the book. Only when you pre-order the book at dragonslayers.co, that's dragonslayers.co, one lucky person is going to win an epic trip with Danny and his group of Dragon Slayers. We're going to take you to Wyoming, and you're going to become truly alive in the presence of amazing men of God, and it's going to knock your socks off. All you need to do to get involved, to punch your ticket for all of that, is go to dragonslayers.co, that's dragonslayers.co, and pre-order Danny's new book, The Way of the Dragon Slayer, 7 Reasons Men Need Brothers. Do it now.
Yeah, that reminded me of going back to how I was even able to broker the deal of getting everybody in the room was when I became the bad guy all those years ago. It broke my heart because I remember telling my wife, I said, "Hey, when I do this, the thing I'm scared the most is I'm gonna lose my brothers. I know that's what's gonna happen," and it did, you know. And I heard a podcast or something, or I heard Meg Meeker talking about. She was actually talking to dads who didn't have connection with their kids, whether it's through divorce or whatever. But she said this thing like, "Hey, the best thing you could do, if you're not in and around them, is let them know that you love them as much as you can."
Mm-hmm.
So I had their numbers, and so all randomly, I'd just text them. I had it in my planner. I had reminders on my phone and my calendar, like text this brother, and I'd think, you know, and I'd text him, "Hey man, I'm thinking about you, love you." And there's so many times I did not receive text back. But then there started becoming a time where I did.
So good.
I started getting texts back, and they started to trust me a little bit more. And one of my other favorite moments of that time together in Vegas, where I was sharing with them why I text them, and they said, "We used to hate to get your texts." I was like, "What?"
We'd all talk about,
Yeah.
you get that text? Yeah, I hate that.
And that's exactly how they said it. And they said, "Well, we just thought you were phoning it in and faking it," because lots of times we'd all get a text. It would say something different, but we'd all get a text around the same time. I felt like you were just checking off a box. And I mentioned I had reminders in there, but I wasn't checking off a box. And it really would be to text one brother, and I text all of them. I said, you'd all get it, because I can't think about one of you and not think about all of you. And I really did miss all of you. There was tears going, so it was one of those moments. It was like, man, it was, like holding up our end, which is, I keep going back to like my older brother, because it's so nice to have someone go before and model it. But that me texting them relentlessly and just letting them know that I love them, and I know me and you are headed back to relationship. I see that. I'm committed to that.
Mhm.
It's the same thing with my brother, kicking in the delivery room door, going, I know I'm in your future, and I don't want to say I missed this moment.
Mhm.
So you may not be ready, but I'm ready, and I'm here when you're ready.
Yeah.
So it's like, man,
Come on.
Cool.
Wow.
Cool. That's heart work there, and that's a great part of your story. I know you all want us to see pictures of your beautiful wife, so we're going to go ahead and throw a picture of you and Bree up here. Yeah, look at that. I mean,
it's like first date. That was, we've been married 11 years, 12 this year, and together for 2 years before that.
Yeah,
so.
the girl that saved your life.
Yeah.
And drew the best part of you out and gave you 2 sons, 3 sons now.
3 sons
but,
now, yeah.
At the part we're going to talk about is your commitment to your boys actually recognizing that they are not always going to be little boys.
Yeah.
There's actually an expectation that they, clearly, you're a coach, you're a sportsman, you have this momentum in your life. So that's a big part of growing up, and big part of pouring into your boys is spending time with them and teaching them to control themselves and bringing out the best in them and bring their best to what they do and all those things. But there was something specific that you did, in particular with Joe, where you were on a mission, and I just call it the knife story, but
Yeah.
take it from there.
Yeah. I read a book called Raising a Modern Day Knight.
Yep.
And it's been around for a while.
Yeah.
And
Great book.
it's an amazing book. And it's really about the need for male initiation, how men become men from other men, and it really keys in on these rites of passage or ceremony, and how pivotal it is to have actually a moment where, yeah, there's Joe right there. Have a moment of significance, of challenge, of overcoming, and this memento, or this thing that they walk away from knowing that, hey, I have what it takes. That speaks to the deepest part of who a boy is in their journey to become a man. So anyways, I read that and go, oh, that's awesome. And there was 2 different, they talk about 2 specific like rites of passage. One is when the boy's like 12 or 13, he needs to do a trip with his mom, this epic trip with his mom. They said, the more you plan it, the more you invest, the better it is. But the goal of the trip is actually for the boy to learn that he's leaving his mom, the nurturing thing of his mom. Mom's not going away. He's not going to boarding school. But this relationship between him and his mom, where she's the primary nurturer and the one that takes care of her, takes care of him, is actually something's changing. And you're entering puberty, and you're needing to starting to become a man, and you're only going to get that from your dad.
And that plan to leave his mother is actually so that it doesn't feel like rejection.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's clarity. So like, oh, I love that. And then they have another one that when the boy's 18, when he's leaving the house, hey, I've been walking with you, and now you're going to go do it on your own and start your own family, which is amazing. But how crazy the world felt at the moment. And, my boys go to a public school, and one of the things that we're in California, which I don't know where you're listening from, but when, the way they paint that picture, it sounds like the most scary place on earth. And it is. There's a lot of scary things about it. There's a lot of great teachers if you stay involved and stay interested in your kids' education and you participate in their learning. And so our kids are at a great school, and we know all their teachers and what they're being taught and not taught, and it's awesome. But it does enter a conversation about certain things that no one had to tell me about when I was a kid, which is like, what's a boy? You know, what's a girl? What's the difference? Is there more than that? Because he's starting to hear these narratives. And so I said, I think I need to do something, one that's earlier. Like, there's those rites of passage about becoming a man, but I think he needs to better understand what it means to be a boy right now. And so I wrote up this thing I call the pocket knife ceremony, and pocket knives I did not always carry a pocket knife. I started working at Living on Purpose. Danny gave me one really fast and was like, hey, every guy should have one. Exactly. Okay, there we go. I got to get mine out now too. So they're always on persons now. Eric's clicking his. You got to flip it open.
Got to have it.
And my boys there's Jonah. There's my middle boy with his knife. And so I said, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create this rite of passage, this thing where they learn about what it means to be a boy, and I'm gonna plan it and orchestrate it. And so we basically did a hike. We do a local hike. We drove out 2 hours to a certain place, and these epic hikes. And when I wanted to talk, one, I just wanted to spend time with them and do something fun and adventurous. But I also had certain objectives, certain things I wanted to talk to them about, certain conversations I wanted to have. So like the first thing that I wanted to talk to them about was legacy. And Joe, who's my oldest, he's smarter than he needs to be. Sometimes I forget I'm talking to a 10-year-old until he says something like, oh, that's right, you're 10. He feels like I'm talking to a buddy. But we're walking down and he's jacked up, man. He's so excited because I had built this up. Like, we're going on this epic ceremony thing, and it's going to be awesome. We're going to wake up early. We woke up early. He had his day pack, and he woke up and I had all this gear that was brand new. He'd never seen it. So it was like he's a gifts love language. So he's like, what, this is crazy. He's up early. We drive to the location. We get out and he's just ready. And I said, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get down. So for Josiah's, we started up high and we hiked down to this river a few miles. I said, we're going to hike down there. We're going to hang out, and then we're going to bring it back up. And I want to talk to you about a few things on the way. Is that cool? He's like, yeah, of course. So we're going, having fun, throwing rocks, brought a slingshot, we're shooting stuff. And I said, hey, here's one of the things I want to talk to you about before we start. It's legacy. I go, do you know what legacy is? And he's 8 at the time, because I did do these at 8 years old. He goes, it's that thing your family gives you. They hand down. I'm like, wow, that's great. That's better than my answer. Legacy. So it's like, yeah. And I was like, that's exactly true. And I go, families can hand you down great stuff, and sometimes they can hand you down bad stuff. And the great stuff, you want to keep going. The other stuff, we have to learn to transform so that we don't hand it down to ours. And that's a big part of what Dad's done with his life, is I only want to hand you the great stuff. I might not hand you, it might not be successful in that.
Yeah, it might smell like things from the
but I want to hand you the great stuff. So I said, on the way down, what I want you to do is make these ducks, make these rock stacks. And what we do is, as we go down, you're going to stack these up. So, because later we're going to have to come back, and we can look back to where we've come before and learn something. Just like I've looked back and I've learned some things. And he goes, he's hilarious, because it's not like, what's the great stuff you got handed down? His first thing was like, hey, what was the bad stuff you got handed down? Yeah. I was like, oh man. So we had these great talks, but it was awesome. We had a great talk. Like, hey, here's the bad stuff I got handed down, and here's how to transform that. So we're having more fun, and we get down to where we're going, and the next thing I want to talk to him is identity. This idea of like, hey man, you're a boy. You're a boy. You have a penis and testicles. Those are the things you have. That's what makes you a boy. Mm-hmm. Girls have a vagina. This is how it works. This is how that works. This is how we had already talked about how babies are made to something. But it's like, well, I should probably rehash this topic with him. And we talked through that, and it was just a great conversation, and about what is what, and hearing it from me. And so we talked through identity, and we said, this is who you are, but we talked about this idea of your identity in Christ. Like, what is that? So my identity comes from God. Like, I'm a son, just like you're my son. And so we had this great conversation about identity. And one of the challenges in that one is I just asked him, I didn't send that video, but I asked him, like, who does your father say that you are? And I sat there and just told him all the things I thought about him. You're this, you're that, you're a leader, you're kind, you're strong, you're courageous. So he had to repeat back to me what his dad said he was. It's like, that's you. And so we're hanging out more, and the next thing we talk about responsibility and this idea of what is responsibility and why it's a good thing and why you want more of it. And this is what makes you a man, when like taking on responsibility. This is what you want to do. If you see responsibility, you want to gobble it up, man. And you want to do a good job. If you do a good job with the responsibility that you get, people will give you more. That's a reward. That's a reward? That sounds like work. It is. It is work, and it's hard, but it's good. But it's, so we talk about lots of other things, but that one culminated into him actually getting his knife. So I had this pocket knife. He thought we were going to get it afterwards. I actually had it on me, and I pull it out, and eyes really big, and it's like, here's that pocket. What? And he opens it up, and so we do knife training. We're also talking about responsibility from that perspective of like, hey, this is,
don't cut your eye out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is a tool, not this is a tool, not a toy. It's not something to like try to throw into the wall or at your brother. Or, like. And so we just taught him about like, sharp blade's a safe blade. Here's how you hold it. And his challenge there was like he had to get a stick and had to whittle it. Get the bark off and then sharpen a point on it. So that was super fun. And the last one was leadership. I said, okay, son, you are a leader. This is another sidebar fun story. It's like, that's always been deep in like our families, like Zamoras are leaders. Like this is who we are. And the side story there was funny. I was one of the boys, got a leadership award at their school. And they like to call the grandma, let her know this is my dad's mom. And the Filipinos that, my dad was immigrant too, came over from the Philippines, and they call and they tell her, and they go, hey, Mama, I won an award for leadership. And immediately she goes, that's right, Zamoras are leaders. That's what we do. I go, oh, that's where that came from. At the legacy, like, oh, there's that duck, there's that rock stack. That's who we are. That's what we do. So I had him say, okay, man, you're leading me. I'm going to follow you back to the car. I will only go where you tell me to go. Now, if you get stuck and you need help, I'd love to help, but you got it. And he did. He led us back. He didn't get lost once. And he did take us on a different route one way. It worked out for him. He still made it back to the
we
car.
We found them ducks.
Yeah. But, he was walking about 10 feet tall with his walking stick and his pocket knife about, like, here we go. Now I'm going to get us back. Yeah. And he did. And then little brother at home is 6, and he's like, what? And like, I want to go. And I got him a wooden knife that he had to build and put together. And here's a wooden knife. And I was like, in 2 years. And I'm telling you, that was so hard. There's so many times I wanted to do his just earlier.
Do it anyway.
I'm like, I'm just going to do it too. It's so fun. I'm going to do that right now.
Break the tradition.
Okay, maybe at 7. He'll do it at 7. And I did a good job. I ended up waiting. And at 8, there's a picture up there. Was a picture of Jonah, and he did his. And it was a different hike. And there was a lot of things that are the same, but there were some things that were different because he's different, And he asked for 2 years he would talk about it and get so excited. So his day when it came, I was like, oh, I'm so glad. It was like Christmas times 11,000. It was like, I'm so glad I waited because he is so excited to do this. And Jonah had so many of those same type of moments and memories. And but awesome. The last thing I'll say about that was so funny, going back to just watching brothers. There were so many times on the trip where they would do something and I'd tell them, that's exactly what your brother did. They didn't know. Like, that was a detail I did not share with you, but walked up, grabbed a pine cone, did this, put it by his head. This, like, your brother did that. Got your knife, you whipped it out, you held it like this. Like, oh, your brother did. It was like, oh, okay. It was also fun to see that thing, that people say all the time about me and my brothers when they meet them and go, oh, I could tell your brothers, because all the mannerisms, all the jokes, all of this or that, like, oh, your brothers. It's like, oh, we got that going on too. That's so fun. Like, you guys are brothers. That's awesome.
That is fun.
Yeah.
That is fun.
So cool.
Yeah.
Great job.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we do and did is we go on adventures. We've taken a number of different things. One of the reasons I reached out to the guys from Alaska is that they've just been a part of my facing my fears, expanding my territories, learning things about myself. And in that process, just built a really deep bond with them. And so, you guys both were on this snow machine trip we took into the interior of the Alaskan mountain range. And, we ride 70 miles into this dog sledding lodge, and literally sledders are pulling up and, kind of like valet parking or whatever. And it was just ridiculous. But, it was, I think it was 4 nights, whatever it was. We, this is the picture here where you're standing there with your rifle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many rifles you've had strapped to yourself, but, that may have been a first,
Yeah.
And, you look hard there, man. You just look like,
I felt great there.
Yeah.
My testosterone was through the roof at that point. I was
Because you
feeling
got 70
awesome.
might to go from here.
It's the beginning.
And it's going to it's going to finish in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we had no idea what we're about. But just what are the lessons that stand out to you about being out there with a group of strangers? Basically, besides me and Ben, I don't think you knew any of those guys.
No, first timer. Yeah.
Yeah. And so now, first time with these guys, first time on a snow machine, first time in Alaska, first time having a rifle strapped to your back, first time.
Yeah.
And we end up putting 300 miles on us in that trip. What stood out to you as significant?
There was a lot of significant moments. I think I'll talk about a few instances, but the most was that that I didn't know that I needed that until I experienced it and realized, this is important. Something's happening to me here.
I may have pooped a little.
I might have pooped. Yeah, there were so many situations where I was scared, and I know I was scared because I was acting really overconfident. I've joked before. It's like I've learned this in a lot of different settings. I didn't know this about me. It's like, I go fight mode when I'm scared. I've created a bunch of anxiety in our office at times when I'm anxious about something because I'll start talking about it I'm psyching myself up for it, but I'm scaring everybody else. But it sounds like confidence or like it, but really I'm scared. So I need to go get ready to attack this thing. So in those moments where it's like, one, I didn't know actually what I was signed up for. I just said yes, and it was like, it sounds awesome, sounds epic, and it's like if you've never done that before, you have no clue. So when you get there, I'm like, dude, this is a little bit different than I was thinking. I don't know what I thought. This is different than what I was thinking. So the first thing I had to overcome in our specific group was I felt super young. I meet all these guys, and I'm definitely the youngest brother of our group of brothers.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like,
You're number 6.
Yeah, I'm number 6. I'm number 6. So I'm like, how do I bring value to this group? How do I even, the imposter syndrome of like, what am I doing here? Wes's mom got a word and sent it, and Wes sent it in the text thread leading up to her saying, my mom got this word of that you're going to pack something or bring something that seems insignificant, but it's really important. This is going to sound so silly. The one thing, I was in the bathroom when I read it, and I had just realized I had my first gray hair in my goatee right in the middle. And I was getting ready to pull it out. And I go, this is that thing I'm bringing. Because it felt like a joke. You know how Guy, when he just says something, it's just a funny moment with you and Guy where you're both laughing. He's like, you belong, man. You got that one gray hair. You have just enough experience and wisdom to hang out with these amazing men. Like, you belong. That was, for whatever reason, that was my little sign that I belonged in this group of them. I mean, we've had them all, you'll hear them all on this podcast, and you hear their stories and what they've done. It's easy to go like, what am I doing here? How did I get invited?
It's like a deer's antler. You're a spike.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, you
still a buck.
You get to those moments, and I my first thing was, okay, I want to bring value. And I go, the value I can bring to this group is actually just to listen and learn, to be open and receptive to what these guys are doing and talking about, and be willing to try. So whatever's going on, I'm going to be willing to try, and I'll do my best. And whenever they're talking about something, I'm just going to try to ask a good question or take really good notes, and then go actually try to apply it in my life and honor them that way. This is something I think, this is how I can contribute to the group. I can be fully here, and I can engage, and I can go try to do something with it. And it's been awesome. I felt like going back to like, I bring no value. It's not true, but you know, it's like I feel like I bring no value other than like, hey, I'm doing that thing. I'm learning from this. I feel this is so great because what I've gotten in return for a lot of these guys who are, some are 10, 20 years, 30 years older than me, is the value they get is like, dude, it's so awesome that you're listening.
Yeah.
It's great. We love that. We want to pass this on. We want this to keep happening with other men. We want this for your family. So to be also around guys I don't know, but want the best for me. We talked about my experience with Bob, where it's like right away, this guy's encouraging me and telling me I can do something. And you don't know, like, you don't even know me.
Mm-hmm.
How could you say that? But I believed him when he told me that I could. And these other men, same thing. Like when Craig said, hey, jump on this thing. It's like, dude, I don't want to do that. That looks scary. I just mastered the little one. I'm actually having fun. I'm not scared anymore. I'm having fun on my snow machine. I even jumped it once. I'm feeling really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like, get on this other one. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
I can't tell him no because we can't talk to each other.
Because he's on yours driving on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm on his, jumping, getting thrown around, the Alaskan wilderness, and really having fun. Because going back to that last thing I'll say that trip gave me, I had this awesome and also scary thought of like, I can't remember the last time I felt this much adrenaline. I felt this alive. And I'll tell you that point where for me, it's my first time hunting. Yeah. So like my first time hunting, we go to like the supermarket and buy guns, and it's like at the supermarket, or we get my little hunter's tag. There's me. Yeah,
you bought an AR at the grocery store in Alaska.
Three Bears, Alaska, right next to the heads of lettuce. You can get an AR.
Yeah, they have groceries, alcohol, baked goods, and firearms in the same store.
It was wild.
Yeah.
Not like California.
So I'm in that, so I'm hunting for the first time. I got a predator tag, and it just feels awesome. It's like, I'm a predator hunting in Alaska.
I'm hunting
predators. Yeah. I'm the apex predator around these parts. But so I'm with, we're hunting, and then I'm with Craig, and Craig can see everything.
Yeah.
And what all looks the same. He goes, oh, there's that thing. I go, where's what thing? Yeah. And he's like, there's a silver fox right there.
300 yards away.
Yeah. And
in the
bam,
white
he's
snow.
gone.
Yeah.
All he does is follow me.
Yeah.
Gone. And I'm like, okay, I don't see that thing that you say that you see, but
I
I'll trust you. I see you. I'll follow you. And so Craig's hunting.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to follow Craig.
Yeah.
But me trying to follow Craig, I forgot that I didn't know how to really ride a snow machine.
Yeah.
And I'm doing things and going over stuff that if I wasn't thinking about just following someone or caught in the chase, I probably would have never tried.
Right.
But I get up and I catch up to him, and we find him. We didn't even get a clean shot of him. He was too far away, but at least I saw him. I go, here's that thing.
Yeah.
I was like, that was the most fun I've ever had. And I can't remember how long, but it was also the most time, like going back to the adrenaline. I was like, I haven't felt this, and it feels like forever. That's too long. That's too long of a time for me to feel like this. Like I have to figure out how to reproduce this more than once every decade.
Totally. Yeah. And that's exactly what those moments do. That's why we do them. And you'll never forget it. And you'll forever tie it to Craig. He was there. He was leading. You forever share it with all these other guys that had a similar experience. They weren't shooting at a fox, but they were out there. What am I doing out here?
we go riding. Me and Ben are off, and we're going off the little whatever semblance of a road they had, and it was Joe, and Joe's like, "Hey, you're gonna go up there," and then like really, really casually, he goes, "If a storm comes in and you have no visibility, just make sure you feel like you're driving downwards." Yeah. He's like, "See you later," and I was like, is there a storm coming? They didn't tell us about a storm. Like, how much should we be expecting?
Worried about a storm.
What did he say?
Where'd he go?
Where are we going? Oh, I could have died again.
And we could have died. But
Yeah,
we didn't.
When I say we, I mean Danny has taught us the time spent together with vulnerability builds healthy soul ties with men, and that's what you described without saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just this continued thing over and over again. Let's go do something wild. Let's have some fun together. Let's get real. Let's get vulnerable, and something happens there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think when you first answered Danny's question, what was that trip for you? You said, I didn't know I needed that.
Yeah.
And I think I would have to guess, probably one of the big elements that you're describing is all these things, the adrenaline, the wild, the crazy, led to, there's this now deep connection with these men and this deep well being built in me because I got out there.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right?
That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm. And, and that's the stuff that we bring home.
Exactly.
I bring home a revival. I
Yes.
I didn't even know something was dead.
Yeah.
And it's alive now. And I get to add it to my marriage. I get to add it to the leadership of my boys. I get to add it to the nourishment of my environment, And so it becomes a part of my field to tend, as Mansfield speaks about taking care of your field. Let's go back to your wife, your marriage, Bree. I'm going to ask all the guys this, but what do you feel is the most valuable contribution that you make to your wife?
Yeah. My adoration. I can't even think about my wife without wanting to cry. I adore, adoring her.
Yeah.
The term every little, I feel like every couple has that little thing that they do that they've been doing forever. And, ours is every Valentine's, every birthday, every card, every little note we write to each other. We just talk about, we always sign it with like, I love you with my whole heart. Like that woman has my whole heart.
Yeah.
And it's committed. It's she knows that it's a lifer. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have my whole heart for all time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a commitment. And I will never waver on that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never second guess that decision. I feel it just as much today as I felt it the first day I saw you. We're on our second date. I told you I loved you and it didn't freak you out.
I wanted to marry you the first date.
And I'm a words of affirmation person. I have lots of words and I like to talk. And I mentioned earlier how I'm good about talking my feelings. And my wife's, she's a 5'6", and explaining her feelings or finding out, even knowing how she's feeling sometimes is a work for her. And she's told me she's challenged me in so much, but the payoff feels like in that is there's just moments in my life where she's shown me how willing she is and how committed she is in the same way. Like it's all the time, but there's the most recent one this last Valentine's Day. She wrote me a note, every day about what she loved about me. And I'm a words of affirmation. I tell people I'm a words of affirmation note, but like my love language is notes. And the reason it's notes because words of affirmation that I can read again all the time. And,
awesome.
We would joke and the husbands and wives will appreciate this is like, oftentimes your love language is opposite of your spouse. It happens a lot. So like I'm high words of affirmation, physical touch. Of course, she's down in the basement with that. And my basement is acts of service and quality time, which is her love language. So it's one of those things where notes are also beautiful for me because I never questioned that my wife's like, I can always get to I know how my wife feels about me, but there's times where it's not her first love language. So it's a work for her to get to a place where she's telling me that. And she's gotten so amazing, with it. And she could, even if she got really amazing, I could never hear it enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got to get that from God. But these notes, she told me these things and it's like, I love how you support my dreams and help me achieve them. I love the way that you look at me like you did when you first looked at me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like this thing of like, oh, you're feeling that step, like that way that I feel about you. It's
working.
It's working, being received. Because sometimes I'm like, am I hitting that target? Are we doing that? And so for me, it was a recent touchdown of like, oh, that's right, that thing that I do. Because I've talked about before on other things we've done, but this idea of like I have mission statements for my life and things that I do, and one that I read daily is that I will lay down my life daily for my wife.
Mm-hmm. It's such an inspiration to know a young man like you. It's so encouraging. I know that all the guys my age just really trust you.
Mm-hmm.
Really want to pour in and make deposits in good soil. So thank you, buddy. Good job.
Thanks.
And,
So good, Christian.
It's an honor to know you.
Champion.
I love being here with you guys. It's my favorite.